Greetings, greetings, greetings. You are now tuned into the vault. Trust Christian own, not to control everything. Just want to thank you for tuning in live, listening to replay. Always appreciate everybody that tunes in live and listens in the replay. You are now tuned into the vault, and you're listening to the voice of Trust Christian. Own nothing, control everything. Definitely excited about this episode. Trust recruiting your successor trustee. And this is one of those episodes, comes by way of a question via a trustee in the training. And then it also came from a mentor. And so that even warranted more of a reason to do this episode. So it'll pose a lot of value to a lot of successor trustees and just trustees that have enrolled in the program, gone through the program throughout the years. So if you're an old trustee or a long time listener, please hit the like, hit the subscribe if you haven't already. Definitely thank you for that. And so, recruiting your successor trustee is a very simple episode. Uh, Coming from more of the mentor perspective and not from the novice perspective, we're looking at more of how long is your term as a trustee. See, sometimes trustees get in trusteeship and they think, oh, trust Christian, I'm gonna get in this thing forever. It's gonna take me forever to get started. It's forever to get growing. If we had to look at the past 5 years in trusteeship, we'd be like, okay. If you say the game is AUM is a number on a piece of paper. It does involve a work. It involves a work. What's your daily work? Sure, it's a piece of paper, a number on a piece of paper, and the AUM change. Okay. So, here we go. We're going to come at it from the level people say they want to talk about it from, which is 30,000 feet. It's fair enough. It's not super private jet status, but it is. You can fly a nice airplane at that level in the air. So, let's just say a trustee saying, oh, trust Christian in the vault. I'm looking to fly at 30,000 feet. Alrighty. Well, there's a term. Some trustees will say, oh, how long is my term? Because the term, I thought this was going to be, I'm going to be in trusteeship for the rest of my life. You are. You're just going to be more of a senior instead of a junior. So, traditional managers of estates can look like anywhere from 5 to 7 years. If you see someone for a 3 year term that's kind of short, it doesn't mean that they're going to be around for a long term. We sat on the line with a senior today. They signed a 6 year contract. They're at the end of the fifth and sixth year, and they look for their successor a year in advance. They put in almost not a year of resignation. Trustees look through the trustee training. They say, oh, trust Christian is a resignation. Doc. Okay. I already talked to a trustee about that today. That blows a trustee out of the water, y'all. That trustee might never come back around, might be hurt for weeks. Christian, you ruined my business plan. How did we ruin your business plan? Because you got to upgrade your association? We know that's not the case. Then trustees do it. Next thing you know, oh, trust Christian. I got the team that I needed. And I'm running for the hills now. Exactly. That's what you want to hear. Heard that time and time again. Sometimes they get the information, you don't hear them even tell you they ran. They just gone. In a good way. Because that's what it's about. It's about empowerment. You got to trust that your successor can take it and run with it. And so, being more candid with trustees in recent times, you say, "Oh man, trust Christian in the vote. You getting on here with trustees." Well, they're supposed to be successors, for all the trustees. Shout out to all the trustees that ever came through trustee training at the vault, because that's what we were looking at. Everyone as was a successor, and we gotta tell y'all that came with a tall chalice. We definitely know that as trustees, y'all went through a vigorous trustee trust Christian training. Why? A lot of the trustees that went through trustee training, they got to experience some of the 8 and 9 figure information that people don't have access to, the families that they don't have access to. Now, if when families are in certain positions, they can go to these family events and they can connect with these families with a little bit more ease and a lot more ease. That's what happens. You put the successor in a position to go and do better. So, uh, trust recruiting your successor if you're going to do a term. Once again, most trustees that go through trustee training, they're aware the 5 year, 7 year, could be close to 20-year term. And they say, oh man, trust Christian to vote. Do I really need to do the 20-year term? It's, well, it may not be doing the 20-year term, some people would say, but are you doing the 5 to 7 year term? So we see that across the board, and we saw that today recently. And the senior say, hey, look, I'm at the end of my term, and I'm at this place in my life where I'm open to sitting on more boards. So you see senior trustees sitting on various different boards, and you can get the senior leadership that you need as a trustee by recruiting maybe some senior leadership for your successor leadership. And successor leadership, that comes from being able to train them. So you say, oh, how do I recruit them? Trust recruiting your successor trustee. How do you recruit this person, Trust Christian? Where do you find these people? Somebody could say that to Trust Christian in the board. They say, Trust Christian, it seems like you're doing it because you're channeling the energies of the higher guys, the guys that did it the right way. Well, okay, ladies and gentlemen, are you gonna give yourself a fighting chance? You're gonna either play with the best or be second best. And this is the market nowadays. Trust recruiting a successor. This is what trustee training is all about. We got a trustee that has started taking ancillary information now, and now they're able to adapt it. They went to an ancillary source. An ancillary source said, hey, go back to where Trust Christian and the Vote directed you initially and go over this information again before you talk to us. That's some of the sources what we've heard recently. Now, where do you find these people? The investigative mind put us in a place where we pay attention to the details. In trusteeship, when we look at, the details. When we look in trustees congregate pretty much in a few circles. Recruiting your successor trustee. What does your successor look like? Well, they look like seniors first. We got to go find our seniors to know what our juniors are going to be. That's the first thing. We got to go find out what the juniors are to find out what the seniors are. We got to go find out what the seniors are to find out what the juniors are going to be. So we see that some of the seniors, remember, if they're going to sit on a term for your initial echelon or state, then they would sit on there for a term, maybe even a short period of time. But they would give initial counsel and trusteeship. It's interesting because some people say, what does this position look like? Some people could say it's like a CLO, a chief legal officer, a chief executive officer. These are usually your guys that are more executive at senior levels. They've already they're trustees right now currently of other trust estates and things of that nature. Remember, CLO is generally they're probably going to have like a JD that we associate with them. We did recently an interview with a JD, and so those are people good to have around for many different reasons, and you know that's how that goes. But once again, recruiting your successor, even in that situation, we talked to that trustee. That trustee said they were talking about money with their parents in elementary school. They were user, what is that called? Authorized user on a credit card when they were in high school with their parents. Now, some people say, oh, that's not a big deal, but some people, we just want to be aware, in which this individual is aware that that's not common amongst many families in America. When we say many, we're talking about the majority. It's just not. So by that having that thought process, it changes the outcomes of continuous financial decisions. Decisions about this, decisions about that. So interestingly enough, they are focused on trusteeship and successorship, and so we definitely have brought them in because they're third gen. So it's like, wow, they're making it through the tough times. Just like, we're sure, but what happens when you have a family estate plan already in place for the next three to generations outside of the three that are alive? So at least going to go six generations. But once they put a system in place or people put systems in place, we've sat in a room with seven generation banks. We've sat in a room with 11 generation banks. Uh, some people say, how is that possible? Well, first of all, there are banks that have been around since the 1700s from England, and they travel and they invest. From people say, oh, what are those places? Liechtenstein, Luxembourg. Some of those estates don't have to leave. They used to be considered havens, but there are families that are from there that invest. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, it's just a matter of, hey, are these families investing with you guys, or what's going on? Because they're coming to the states nowadays and actually looking to invest in the states, and trusting your recruiting your successors, finding someone that you can say you trust. This goes back to a harsh question. That's why we got trust at the beginning of it, because it's all about trust. It's all about trust. Oh yeah, trust Christian and vote. That's what it's about. Every single time. Every single time. Of course it's about that. Why wouldn't it be about that? Even your successor. Some people say it's about AUM. Well, okay, your term, it may go over 5 to 7 years. What is your goal over that 5 to 7 year period? Some people sitting there, oh, trust Christian, I'm just looking to get into private asset protection. Okay, then you hear their mentality. That's it. That's where it stops. People, you don't have to wonder why it's not going to be passed along properly, because it's just not in the right mindset passed along properly. I just want to get in here and sit on the private assets privately now. Okay. It takes money to make money, so doesn't it cost money to manage the assets? Now, some people move into private family foundationship, and that's where they kind of make it into a quality or position, or a quality position, we should say. You know, sure. And even in that position, you're still looking for a successor to manage the estate properly. That's, some people say, oh, well, can we third party that one out? Sure, that's usually where it's third partied out. You know, foundations are usually third partied out. Why? Because they're managing tons of money. The operators that built the estate usually are active, or they're doing their best probably to enjoy their wins and not have to do anything but enjoy their wins. So foundation is like, hey, they show up, they cut checks, Uh, uh, we go home. We cut checks, shake hands. You cut the ribbons at the events. What about recruiting your successor, though, Trust Christian in the Vault? Where are we gonna find these people at the big events that you talk about? Yep, we're gonna find them at the event. Yep. Oh man, I gotta get out and shake hands. Yep. How you gonna recruit people? You gonna do it just through the internet? What website you using? We really like talking to trustees and going over these things. Trustees come to us, they talk about, oh man, Trust Christian Vault, I got a team already. Then when they see, oh man, this might not work the way I think it's gonna work, or to work the way that thought it was gonna work, and then I have to pivot. That's one of the words that we heard, and we knew that you gotta adapt it to your personality. You gotta adapt it to your personality. When you trust the recruiting process, do you even have a recruiting process? This is something that we talk to trustees about. Do you trust your recruiting process? Are you trusting your recruiting process? Do you have a process in place? Some people say, "Oh, I don't have a process in place. How do I recruit them? How do I vet them?" That's the process, the vetting process. Well, remember, a lot of trustees come in trustee training and they end up having a bunch of readings that they end up having to read. So, probably the biggest thing initially is getting them to just read over the information that they need to read. Is interesting because putting somebody recently in contact with an ancillary source, they literally had them read what we're talking about. It was interesting because you know it's like if somebody doesn't want to read but they say they want to be a trustee, those are one of the prerequisites for being a trustee is reading. So it's interesting once again to see these type of thought processes going on in the public, but not in the private. In the private, of course, you recruited a successor. That's your first one of your first jobs, and second job is doing your mandate, and then if not resigning in peace. These are the things that are going to come up as a trustee. That's what's going to come up. Are you managing the assets properly and growing them and then moving away, or are you looking to stay and not doing a daggone thing today? These are the questions that you got to ask people as senior trustees. Did you grow the family estate today? These are the hard questions that sometimes people don't want to hear or they do want to hear. These are the questions that have to be answered. Yep. Well, at the end of the day, trust recruiting your successor trustee comes from you recruiting someone that knows trusteeship. We wouldn't say to your level, but could be more superior. Think about how easy it is to recruit someone that's more superior just based off of them saying they worked at maybe an institutional bank, an investment bank. Some people definitely those are two different things, and you could still get a quality institutional banker. Man, we gotta call this one guy. Gotta call him. It's already Tuesday. Yeah, you want to just keep the relationships with other people. And it's interesting because we had a senior tell us earlier today some of the secrets, and this is a big deal. Sometimes you don't really see the seniors go to work for you until they see you doing like baby work. And baby work is a lot of just basic messages and things like that, but a lot of that work means a lot, and it's a big deal when you're putting yourself to, the test and saying, hey, look, I'm looking to, you know, hunt whales and dinosaurs, and, hey, I'm trusting in the process and recruiting a senior and the successor, and that's how that works. You recruit more than that, but we're just giving out successor in this one. But you could say senior too, which is still dealing with someone that they can still manage if anything were to happen to you as the initial trustee. And they don't have to be exactly immediate trustees, they can be just successors. So on paper, they're successors, but that doesn't mean they're active right now. That doesn't mean they can't give counsel right now either as a counselor. So there's many ways to just keep it active without being, active in the respect of voting and super responsibility or a lot of responsibility, and it may not be as descriptive as proper financial terms saying super there, but when we talk about that, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking if anybody's going to be a successor trustee, now trustees have the same responsibility. So it's not to say, oh well, everybody has the same responsibility because you're called a trustee. That's not accurate. Some people in the public would like to amalgamate those type of terms, but just because you have one term in the public doesn't mean it's the same in the private, and so that's why, they can't state dispute. Oh, contract rate makes the law, so there's a different term in the private, it's going to stand. So we understand that as well, but we get that people may say, oh, it's a trustee, so it must have power right now. It's a successor, so successors are not active. Successors are usually passive. They're usually waiting in the ranks for the senior to pass along the torch. Appreciate everybody for tuning in live, listening, replay. Always appreciate everybody that tunes in live, listens in the replay. You're now tuned into the Vault Trust Christian Owned, Not to Control Everything, episode 661. Trust, recruiting your successor trustee. This is one of those episodes. Then you get, that was the senior trustee perspective. Oh, Trust Christian, I'm going 30,000 feet. I need to know how I'm going to delegate out some tasks and get things done. Exactly. So when you're 30,000 feet, you're not flying the plane. We know mentors that fly their own plane. Many of them. But they trusted the recruiting process. They trusted the recruiting process. And it's interesting because some of the mentors that we know, they actually don't look at you as if you're supposed to know, but if you act like you know, they actually treat you as if you know it. And so some people say, "Oh man, what is that? Does that mean that you're faking it till you make it?" And some trustees think they're gonna get away with that. No, why? Because we asked that senior trustee, and they said they care about people that they know that do their homework. So the more homework you do, the better for you. Doesn't mean you have to be a super genius, but you have to know certain elements of conversation to get things done. You say, man, how how did it get like that? It took you betting on yourself every time. Probably the bravest thing you're gonna do. You say you're gonna get the job done every single time. That's what you do. Recruiting a successor isn't about you replacing you. Recruiting a successor is about recruiting someone that's going to be proper for the family estate, proper for the family trust. That's what we're talking about. recruiting your successor trustee. That's what we're really talking about here. And recruiting a successor comes down to, some people say it's interesting, man, we gonna say, we could say, oh man, y'all could hire them good Ivy League boys and ladies. We could say that. You probably won't be led astray by them. They got some quality educations. They've been trained in ways they not even going to talk to you about it. That's the wildest part. Like, if y'all only knew what Trust Christian's perspective was, like how we see the what you all call the elite, what people call the elite. Oh, this person, they have an education you don't have. They understand Trust Christian, own nothing, control everything. Definitely. They not gonna tell you that though. They looking to see how far you gonna go. They looking to see what you gonna put together. They looking to see, looking to hear, cause they already a doer. Some people say, Trust Christian, is this challenging? Eh, there's some more mental hurdles than it is physical hurdles. So once you start getting used to overcoming the mental hurdles, then you'll be okay with moving forward. The first few mental hurdles are going to feel like mountains, maybe because the space of having to used to change and adapt quickly is going to, feel like mountains. Sometimes, like, okay, in the initial stages, you're going to go through a quick few. They're not pains, they're not even a setback. It's more of a, sometimes you got to keep your feelings out of the business as you're building it in a very early stages, because there's a lot of changes that you're going to have to make, and you don't want to fall in love with a certain position or a certain thing about the business. And in turn, remember, it's a business. It's a product. It's a service. It's a package. It's not you. It's not a human. So that's how that looks. When you're recruiting for your successor, for that, you're recruiting for the entity. Yeah, actually, here we go. Y'all want the gems? So the way we've been trained is you want to recruit two people, and if you can afford a third, you recruit people that voraciously want to take your job. They pretty much want to step into the boss's position. And once again, it's somebody says, "Oh, do you need three?" It's three is a good competition. Two's still a good competition if you can afford it. That means that the company can afford 2 to 3 people to take your position, and they are just sitting in the ranks, ready to take your position, studying your moves. Of course, they've read the books that you read. They're not going to be able to take your position. They're not going to be allowed by the board. These are certain beginning, what people will call, well, yeah, rites of passage to actually become the senior of the company. That would mean you already know the mindset of the previous senior, and that's just based off a slight leisure activity. It's not, oh, I studied everything at the school they went to. All right, you didn't do that, but there's, like, okay, throughout the time of them being a manager of that company, they had certain readings for the company that they read. A lot of the bigger companies have readings for the company, so a lot of trusts have readings for the trust. A lot of trusts will have various different books and readings that we work with our trustees to institute, and they have certain readings for their successors that they're going to have to read. Some of them are already reading it with their successor trustees, but they're still going to require the successors to read them on their own. That's how that works. So we appreciate everybody for tuning in live, listen, replay. I always appreciate everybody for tuning in live, listen, replay. This is Christian at trustchristian.com. Once again, it's Christian at trustchristian.com. Look forward to hearing from you all at the email christian@trustchristian.com for a consultation or trustee training. Appreciate you all. Peace and joy.